Hi everyone, I'm Bakhtawer and I talk about books. Today I'm reviewing Melody of a Tear by Haroon Khalid Akhtar. And I believe that I read this book probably a couple of months ago, but a lot of my videos have been backlogging or whatever because I was giving exams and such. But yeah, so I believe this was published probably in 2019 and then it went on to win the UBL Best Debut Fiction Prize in 2020. And since last year, uh, Liberty Publishing has made it available on their website. So the novel is a work of magical realism. So you have, for anyone that may not know, it's a genre of fiction in which you have magical, fantastical elements which sort of take place in a very realistic sort of environment or setting. So the story revolves around Zara, who is a young woman who has difficulty connecting to her gender identity. So she's a girl, but she doesn't feel like she's a girl. She's also suicidally depressed, and she kind of can't connect emotionally with her parents because they prefer her brother or whatever, sibling rivalry. But also, she's kind of emotionally stunted, so she can't. She can't shed tears, she can't cry, she can't express her grief or sorrow in any way. She's like physically incapable of shedding a tear, right? In the midst of this, she comes across a very unusual fellow named Zed, who in many ways is her polar opposite because he sheds what you might call magical tears, and he also has this ability to absorb the grief and sorrow of anyone that he wishes. So he kind of provides this almost very strange public service in which he actually frequents localities and places where horrible incidents have occurred, where people are suffering, where poverty or sickness is rampant, and he kind of absorbs the grief of all of those people, takes it upon himself in a way. And she kind of becomes initially very infatuated with him because he's got this obvious charm, but he's also got the faculty of easy tears. So he has something that she wishes very much to have, very much to, she wants to emulate that sort of mindset and ability, really. So without giving away like the whole story, I want to discuss a few of the themes which I found were, immensely powerful. So firstly, I love how the tears in the book, they're kind of they're both a physical reality, as in they're visible, but they're also magical, obviously, and they're also a metaphor for how society has crumbled. How society has lost its basic sense of humanity, compassion, empathy. It's become this really cold, calculated, mechanical sort of phenomenon. And also, the novel really makes you think that there's this deranged need in society, isn't there, for everything to fit inside a certain box. Underprivileged people go in one box, prescribed genders go in one box, trust fund babies go in one box. But what about people that don't belong anywhere? What about people that you can't put into any kind of mold like Zara? Where do they go is the question. Also, in the novel, you see this depiction of society having become this corrupt, kind of decaying, rotting, sort of concrete jungle of materialism, emotional disconnect, consumerism. You see people who do anything for a quick buck, and you see that compassion, integrity, basic human decency, they've become something of a rarity. So in fact, there's a wonderful passage about more than halfway through that I've marked out because I wanted to share it in the video. I'm going to read it. Let me find my glasses. So this is basically what I'm about to read is a dialogue from one of the supporting characters whose name is Varis. He's like this writer of crime thrillers, and he says this when he's sort of on a rooftop of sorts and he's looking at the city, and this is the commentary that he makes on the city. So he says, in our depraved city of concrete, that small radiance is the only dependable base you can fall back on after being defeated by the city. First, I mistook it as mere hope, but then observing the sparing righteousness of the city, I was convinced that the steady glow was the city's collective conscience. It's low lying and difficult to spot, but it never extinguishes and requires you to be on higher ground for its sighting, just like the conscience sending one to stand tall on higher moral ground. You must have faith in humankind if you want to savor this light. So he's also commenting on how the city has lost its conscience, or that it's visible, but it's like it's not visible to everyone. You kind of have to make an effort to be able to see it. And in the backdrop of the novel, you have this wonderful crumbling old mansion where this guy Varis, the writer of crime thrillers, he lives, and it's called Safed Koti, and it's a bit of a character in itself because it's kind of it's like this remnant of a bygone romantic era, kind of this symbol of a decadent past in which, you have the mansion, where storytellers have have dwelled, and where books are kept. And it's kind of like, it's almost like a time capsule, really, because it stores all of these things which, you would imagine are vital to human civilization. And I really got to thinking when I was reading the novel of how, writing really is, in my opinion, the backbone of human civilization, isn't it? Because I read this, I believe, in *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari, that when human beings discovered writing, it was kind of like a turning point in our cognitive evolution. And also, when you think about how, if people hadn't begun to write, sort of keep records, write, store their experiences and pass them on to the next generation, write down their memories, or kind of write down knowledge, really. If they hadn't figured all of this out, I mean, where would we be? We would be nothing, because computers, I mean, they popped up, what, in the last 30, 40 years? You had first generation computers or whatever, but writing has been around for thousands of years, and it's the only link we have with, with our ancestors, with human ancestors. I mean, without writing, we would have no sense of who we are. We wouldn't really exist the way we do now, would we? So, and now you hear news from all over the world, really iconic, once popular bookstores, they're closing because they couldn't make enough money during the pandemic or whatever. So it's really like that culture is being lost, and we're all the worse for it. So to me, Safed Koti also, it kind of represents that as well. I mean, that just might be my own take on it. And then the Safed Koti in the novel is subsequently demolished, and you see that it's like they've destroyed something sacred, like greed, technology, the profit motive, and ignorant people have destroyed something that is culturally and sort of important in so many ways. And they're just going to make like a pathetic plaza or an apartment building in place of it. So also, one of the other great things that you can take away from the novel is the importance of learning how to express your pain and express your emotions, because we're always taught that pain is such a negative emotion, right? But it really has a function, it really has a part to play, because when the pain is not expressed, it usually finds its outlet in something negative, like a sickness or whatever. You hear people getting diabetes all the time because they've had a lot of stress, or it's usually the man that gets it as well, because he has to provide for everybody, and everybody is kind of on his back, so he gets diabetes and strokes, and then women go on to live for 80 or 90 years. So now for some slight, I wouldn't call it criticism, but just some things which I believe had more potential had they, had that been maximized, had it been utilized better. So the character of Zed, of course, he is this incredibly complex character, right? But the thing I felt was that he felt kind of distinctly unlikable to me. Not that I have a problem with unlikable characters generally in literature, because there's so many unlikable characters you can think of off the top of your head. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment, or Mr. Darcy, although I liked him from the beginning, but or probably Mr. Rochester for about half of Jane Eyre or something like that. But you're still able to create this extraordinary emotional connection with these characters. But with Zed, it's like you're chasing a ghost. You're kind of viewing him from a distance. You can't. I felt unable to form a proper emotional connection with him, and I felt that he could have been written a bit better. Also, there are some parts of the book, not all of them, but it's like some parts of the book which are kind of like someone is talking at you. Someone is kind of giving you blocks of information as opposed to just letting the story flow, and the reader comes to his or her own conclusions because of the imagery and description and everything. But a few parts of the book feel like you're just being given all the information to form a narrative, when you should have been able to come to your own conclusions. I think that a good enough editor would have picked up on it, but what this does is it has the effect of somewhat lessening, again, the relationship and the emotional connection that you can have with those characters, and kind of it keeps you at a distance from their motivations. So yeah, a beautiful, promising work. I really enjoyed it. I thought about it a lot the past month as well. So it is the sort of book which, I mean, you learn a lot from the first time reading it, but also later on when you've had time to digest it, when you've had time away from it, you start kind of thinking about, you learn more once you've finished it as well, because it gives you a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. I'm going to leave a link down in the description where you can purchase it in Pakistan, the Liberty Books website. I'm not entirely sure where else you can get it from, but if I find out, the other places it's available from, I will add that to the description. So yeah, give it a read. If anyone has read it already, please, as always, leave your comments down below. I love interacting with you guys. Such lovely people have subscribed lately, so I'm very happy about that. And so yeah, if you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing, and please take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.